Episode 1 of Monarch Legacy of Monsters begins in the past back on Skull Island. Bill Randa records a message to a friend saying it's something fundamental. He then runs from a spider monster and throws a bag into the sea. Another creature then appears and starts fighting the other, giving him time to escape. In 2013, a member of a fish crew realizes there's a strange packet in the middle of their latest catch. We then jump to the present where we meet Kate as she waits for her airplane to land. When she's about to leave, the man beside her says she needs to stay in her seat longer. Then people in hazmat suits arrive and start disinfecting the plane. The man argues it's all an act, as it won't help avoid any monster attacks. She has glimpses of soldiers with similar suits ignoring her while she cries in the rain. There's a sign in the airport warning everyone who arrives about evacuation routes in case of a Godzilla attack. Before entering the country, she explains her purpose for visiting Japan is to settle some affairs of her late father. Now Kate isn't actually on good terms with her mother, as when they talk on the phone, Kate is rude and impatient. She arrives at her father's apartment and, when she finds out one of her keys to the place works, she hangs up on her mum. The place is filled with pictures of her father, but some of them have him with another family. A strange woman then appears and both of them start arguing, confused as they don't understand each other's languages. Kentaro, the woman's son, knows English and asks what Kate is actually doing there. She surprises him when she says she has the keys to the apartment and that the man in the pictures is her father too. In 1959, Lee Shaw, Dr. Keiko, Miura, and her husband, the younger Bill Randa, are driving to a mysterious place. Bill asks if they are on the right road, and Keiko confirms it after seeing the radiation levels keep on getting higher. We also learn that they have a kid called Monarch. Now Bill and Keiko put on gas masks and say they'll finally be able to prove their theories aren't mere fantasies. Lee isn't involved in their research, he's only there to protect them. Now they enter a restricted area, but a boy is already hunting there without any protection. He says the stories about radiation are all lies to scare away curious people. When the group goes further, they find an uninhabited area with many facilities and zero radiation. Now Keiko, Bill and Lee set up explosives, and after using them they find out there's something under the area. When everything starts to collapse, Keiko says they're in the right place. Now Keiko and the others find hundreds of eggs underground, and she says it must be a new form of MUTO. Even though Lee says they should go back as it's dangerous, the other two want to go near the creatures. Keiko starts climbing down before they realise this, and Lee says he'll go to help her. Now back to Kate, she talks with the family and shows pictures of her father, Hiroshi, with her. Emiko, Kentaro's mother, asks her if she knows what happened to Hiroshi. Kate looks sad, apologises and leaves. Now Kate explains to her mum that there's nothing there for them, but suddenly a loud alarm interrupts the people and people start to run, making Kate fall. Kentaro and Emiko appear and take her to a safe zone where they will be protected from a Godzilla attack. Then we finally learn what happened to her in the past. You see, Kate was in San Francisco when Godzilla attacked. She was on a school bus at the time and she tried to help people get out. When she and only a few more kids were out, part of the floor broke. The bus, full of kids, fell right in front of her. After remembering that, a new message warns people that they're safe and can get out of the safe zone. Kentaro takes Kate to where their father used to work, and behind a strange map they find a safe. Kate manages to open it and finds the same packet shown at the start of the episode. It has the same symbol Kate saw on the soldiers' clothes when Godzilla attacked San Francisco. Kentaro takes the packet to May, a friend who can access the files stored in it. Although she's reluctant at first, she accepts helping him after he explains the situation. It's encrypted, but she can easily access it. When she does so, someone realises what's happening and warns her superior, saying the files have a Monarch symbol. The girl can only get the place it was accessed in, and her superior calls in another person. Now May finds many files she doesn't understand, however Kate and Kentaro recognise one of them, as it's similar to the map in her father's workplace. Kate explains to Kentaro why she doesn't like her father so much. You see, a few days after Godzilla's attack, he actually found her. She was relieved to see him, but he only said he was sorry, gave her some puzzling instructions and abandoned her. A while later, she and her mum received a call saying the plane he was on disappeared. When they get back to checking the files, they find another thing that they recognise. One of them shows a huge footprint and someone in it. That person is Keiko, who's actually their grandmother. Now back in 1959, Keiko starts collecting a sample from the eggs. However, the building they're in starts to collapse too, which wakes up some of the insectoid creatures. Lee and Keiko then run, but there are a lot of monsters. Keiko can't climb because the creatures are pulling her down, and even though Lee starts shooting at them, it doesn't work. Keiko ends up falling, apparently, to her death. Episode 2 of Monarch begins in 1952, where Lee is put on a mission to serve as a security escort for a Japanese scientist. They don't start on good terms, as Lee searches for a man, but that scientist in question happens to be Dr. Keiko. She drives him to where she'll continue her investigation. Keiko explains here that a WB-29 scooped up airborne radioisotopes over the Philippine Sea. Also, they originated in the Philippines, so Keiko is there to find out exactly what's happening. Keiko and Lee argue again when she starts hearing noises in the woods and a soldier disappears. This is when Bill Randa appears and, before he can do anything, Lee puts a gun behind his head and interrogates him. Bill says he's a cryptozoologist and that they might be searching for the same thing. Now Bill Randa says Keiko and Lee should also be following the stories of the people living there. The local myths talk about a dragon, which might be the cause of the radiation. Keiko agrees, but Lee says this is an awful idea. She gets angry and sends him off, and he happily takes the jeep and abandons the other two. Now Bill says the creatures are actually MUTOs, and here we learn what that actually means. Apparently it stands for Massive Unidentified Terrestrial Organisms. They compare a map of the radiation tracks and of the path the creature is said to have been making, and it forms the same image. They follow the path and find an enormous ship alone in the middle of the forest. Now on the ship, Keiko finds out Bill had seen the dragon once. That was when he was one of the passengers on the ship they are in now. He wants to prove he isn't crazy, so he needs to record the monster. As they keep investigating, they find an organic material covering a good part of the ship and some of the late passengers. They need to find another way to get out of there, as the material is now at the entrance too. Kentaro wakes up and goes to work, however he changes directions and goes to his father's workplace instead. He starts smashing everything there, angry at his father. However, that's when he realises one of the drawers is locked. He tries the keys that Kate gave him, and one of them actually happens to work. To his surprise, there's another file inside with the Monarch symbol on the front. It talks about Lee and has a recording of what happened in the Philippines. Kate is walking down the streets of Tokyo planning on returning to her country. However, she doesn't realise that there's a woman following her. When she reaches the station, Tim, the man from Monarch in the last episode, begins talking to her. She tries to leave, but he asks her about the files, eventually grabs her and takes her outside. She threatens to call someone, and when Tim drops his guard, Kate throws the phone at him and runs away. The woman that was following her stops Kate and puts the girl in a car. Tim enters and puts a bag on her head so she won't know where they're going. However, that makes Kate have flashbacks of the tragedy in San Francisco, so she starts panicking. Trying to take the bag off, she hits the woman, which causes a car accident. So then Kate uses that opportunity to then run away. Kate tries going to the police, but the officer there shrugs it off, saying he thinks she's drunk and misunderstood things. He says he'll call the US Embassy, but he doesn't believe him. Then she runs away to May's place. Kentaro talks to his mum about his father and him being angry. They have a sweet moment as she picks up some of Hiroshi's photos and starts ripping them, and as they both do this together, they start laughing. When Kate reaches May's apartment, Tim is already there. May grabs her and takes her out silently before anyone realises that they've arrived. While Kentaro asks his mother about his Uncle Lee, he receives a message from May. He doesn't have time to call her though, as Tim and his friend are already at Kentaro's door. They get in and ask him about the files, and Emiko helps him pretend he's going to hand them over when he's actually escaping. He meets up with May and Kate and says he knows where they need to go. Kentaro, May and Kate go to a sort of spa and find Lee. He's surprised to see them and asks what they want. When they're in an open space, they explain they found Monarch's files and want to be safe. Lee explains they're in a place where Monarch manages some of their assets and shows he has an ankle monitor. He cuts it off at this point and tells them they have seconds to decide if they're accompanying him or not. Back in the ship, the creature starts attacking them, smashing the walls as it does so. Part of them falls on Bill and traps him. Luckily, Lee arrives at the right time and helps him get out. The three of them then run away as the monster topples the ship. They see the dragon mesmerised. As the episode comes to an end. Monarch spies on Kate and the others as episode 3 of Monarch begins. Lee knows this, so he pretends they are just casually talking. However, that doesn't work and they run to the van to escape. As it's a modern car, Lee doesn't know how to start it, but he gets the hang of it and runs all the same. As the guards block the path they're trying to use, Lee has to do some risky maneuvers to escape. They return and hit the main entrance, leaving the Monarch officers behind. After Lee, Keiko and Bill find the dragon and establish Monarch, they try to get the government's backing. A General Puckett arrives, doubting their potential. However, the general is interested when Keiko shows a giant footprint of an unknown monster. They say they need a lot of uranium, an idea that the general doesn't like, but soon sees the importance of after Lee says the monster might be a global threat. After the army goes away and Monarch gets what they want, Lee and Bill discuss this. They obviously aren't comfortable working together yet, but Keiko smooths things over. Now back to the present, Lee explains Bill used to scribble down everything he saw. Kentaro and Kate say their father was the same, while May chirps in and says she's already digitalized the files so they don't have to go back to her apartment. Now they only need to search there for anything about Alaska. With that, they'll understand what Hiroshi was trying to do. Lee says they wanted Monarch to be about hopes and ambitions, but the organization lost its way. Now it's going after them instead of chasing monsters over the globe. Angry, Kate says Monarch is the family's curse and leaves the car. Now May talks with someone, telling them she might be back soon, and after that she ditches her phone in the ocean. Kentaro is angry as he doesn't understand what she's doing, nor why they are going to South Korea. Lee says they'll meet a good friend of his, and the kids need him if they want to escape Monarch. Now in South Korea, Lee tries to enter the country, but the guards don't trust him. They get him and the kids wanting to put them in a van, but they're only pretending as one of the guards pushes the other into the van and locks it up. He is Lee's friend, Duho. He'll get them to Alaska to find out what happened to Hiroshi. At the same time, a woman from Monarch talks with Tim and Duval, his partner. She's probably the organization's new leader, or at least someone important within the organization. She wants Tim out of the mission, making it seem he has personal matters in it. Even so, when Duval finds out Lee and the others are in South Korea, she says she needs Tim. Keiko, Bill and Lee arrive at the point where they'll use uranium to attract the monster. However, things aren't progressing as they expected. General Puckett and many soldiers are there preparing a radioactive bomb. They plan on killing the creature rather than studying it. Lee tries to argue with him, but it doesn't work. Suddenly, the sonar spots something. Godzilla appears from below the water and walks to where the uranium is. Keiko runs, trying to stop the bomb from being activated, but Lee stops her. The giant is nuked and the army rejoices, thinking they've killed him. Keiko is furious at this point, but Bill tries to calm her down. He says that Lee has done the right thing here, as if she stopped the bomb, the general could have had her deported or killed. Lee says now they have a bigger backing than they planned, and with the right to greater equipment, a team and more. Also, he says he will only tell Puckett what Keiko and Bill tell him, meaning he can turn a blind eye to some things. In the present, Lee talks with Kate and May, and they find out where to go. Hiroshi was headed to Barrow, so that's their new destination. Kate has a talk with Duho about her father here and what she's feeling, which includes the confusion, the anger, and the swirling pit of emotion. After that, he switches out with Lee as they need to land, and Kate acts as his co-pilot. Now in Alaska, they find parts of Hiroshi's airplane and signs of life in a residence nearby. Kentaro and Kate hug after finding out their father is alive, but there's bad news here too. Duho finds claw marks in the aeroplane, so he warns everyone and rushes to their plane to help the group escape. Unfortunately, it's too late. A mole-like monster appears and uses its breath to freeze the transport and Duho to death. Episode 4 of Monarch begins in Utah as a woman is lying in the sun when she hears a beeping come from her trailer. She enters and checks many monitors, and the data worries her. She scrambles to make a call to someone, and we find out she's Dr. Barnes, a member of Monarch. Back with our protagonist for now, Kentaro tries to fire a flare on the monsters, but he misses and only distracts it briefly. Everyone runs away until they find a small cave to hide in. However, the monster's steps shake the floor and break part of the ice May's standing in. She falls into the cold, icy water and manages to get out holding a scream. She starts shouting as soon as they're in the clear, but Shaw shuts her up. After that, she also argues with Kentaro, asking if he's happy they're there. Kentaro remembers a night 1 year earlier when he was holding his first presentation in an art gallery. He didn't know how to describe his art and himself, which made him feel bad. He stepped out and ended up meeting Mei. After a bit of flirting, they went on a date together. On their date, Mei didn't talk much about herself, she just said she works with computers. She's surprised to hear it's Kentaro's first job as an artist, but he was with her instead of being in the gallery. They went to his house after that, where Kentaro explained he doesn't use all the pieces he wants in the show because it isn't his gallery. His cell phone then rang, but instead of answering it, he kissed Mei. Now back in the present, Kentaro says he saw something that looked like a building. Even though he insists, no one wants to risk his idea, and they decide to go in a different direction, in which there's a higher possibility of finding people. He thinks Mei is disagreeing with him because she's angry. Even though no one has seen the building Kentaro is talking about, they follow his plan. As far as they walk, they don't see any kind of structure though. Suddenly, Kate sees a light far away from them, and everyone but Kentaro agrees they need to go to it. Kentaro says he's right and goes on his way to the building he saw before. Kate doesn't want that, but he still goes alone. Now Barn says to Monarch's boss the data shows spikes only found in pulsars, which are supermassive black holes. However, this one is coming from Alaska, and that isn't the surprising thing. The last time anyone saw readings like those was right before G-Day. Now while Kentaro walks alone in a blizzard, Kate says they shouldn't have let him go. Mei gets delirious and talks nonsense, while Kate tries to make her feel better, and it appears to work. Unfortunately, things are about to get a lot worse for everyone. Kentaro loses his strength and falls. The others get back to Hiroshi's tent. Shaw says Titans affect their environment in strange and unpredictable ways, so the light they see is probably part of that. Kentaro hallucinates with Mei, and the story goes back to their first date again. After he went to the gallery, Mei stayed in his room and received a call. She lied about what she was doing in Japan and said she'll be back soon. We find out that that person is Lyra, her sister, as Mei tells Kate about her. If anything happens, Kate must explain everything to Lyra. They burn Hiroshi's papers to make a stronger fire and stay warm, but the monster appears. It starts sucking the heat, freezing everything around it. This, however, gives Shaw an idea. Shaw tells them the Titan is obviously attracted to heat, so they can use the airplane's fuel to distract it. Mei calls Kate and quietly says she needs to make it out of there alive, even if she's the only one to do so. Kentaro's hallucination continues and he ends up seeing his father. They have a talk which gives him the strength to walk more. He finds the building he was looking for, but it's a run-down place. He has almost no hope, but then he finds a radio and contacts someone. Shaw is almost done with his plan, but the Titan gets to them before everything is set into motion. It attacks Mei, who uses the bag with Hiroshi's files in to protect herself. The airplane fuel is burnt and the monster leaves her alone. Then a helicopter shows and rescues them. Hiroshi is already inside and they thank him for saving them. Mei thanks Kate for saving her and they are much closer now as a result. Shaw gets frustrated when he sees the notebook with Hiroshi's file is frozen. However, again, things are going to get worse. When they land, the person who greets them is Tim from Monarch. Episode 5 of Monarch begins with Monarch trapping our protagonist in a command post in Alaska. Kate sits in a corner saying they can't intimidate her, and Kentaro screams he is Hiroshi Randa's son and throws a chair at the door. Mei, on the other hand, isn't alone. Agent Duval asks the girl where her backup for the files is, and she replies by saying she knows about the girl's identity and calls her Lyra Mateo of Tacoma, Washington. Duval gives her a card and tells Mei they can trust each other. Tim wants to recruit them, but Deputy Director Vertigo doesn't agree with him. Duval says they need to keep the young ones on a long leash and see what they're going to find. The idea is accepted. Tim gives Mei, Kentaro and Kate new passports, money, phones and plane tickets. Mei wants to go back to her life in Tokyo, but the other two want to go after their father. As it would be dangerous for them to get separated, they decide to stay together. Their next destination is Hiroshi's office in San Francisco. Shaw talks with Vertigo and criticizes Monarch, telling her the organization doesn't do anything. She tries to convince him the kids told them about what they're trying to do, but he doesn't believe her. Meanwhile, Tim and Duval discuss Shaw's age. Apparently, a mission gone bad caused him to age differently. Now James, a friend of Kate's mother, Caroline, picks her up and the others in San Francisco. Kate tries to refuse his help, but they all end up going with him. When she arrives at her mum's place, she plans to break the news to her gently, but has no chance to do that. She tells Kentaro's full name and leaves Caroline shocked. Now after discussion, we learn Kate stopped leaving her room when G-Day occurred. That's why Caroline pushed the girl to go to Japan and try to learn more about her father. Now Kate says she'll investigate Hiroshi's office, which is in a secured area of the city. Her mother helps her and the others reach the place, but has to leave them alone there. While they walk around the ruined site trying to reach Hiroshi's building, Kate remembers what happened 2 days before Godzilla attacked the town. She met with her girlfriend Danny at their favourite coffee shop and went to work together, as they had a job at the same school. Danny asked Kate to live together. When Kate arrives at her class, many students aren't there because their families are afraid of Godzilla. She tries to calm them down, but the school isn't so sure nothing will happen. She had the chance to stay in the school with her girlfriend instead of going on the bus with the children. Now military officers monitoring the area realise someone is there with them. Kate, Kentaro and May hide and try to think of something. Kentaro throws a bag of chips near a car, attracting cats. The officers think the noise was made by the animals and leave, while he notices Kate is feeling down, so he starts singing a few songs their dad would make them listen to. She's happy, but Dad also makes the military find them. They run to an underground passage, but Kate's trauma starts acting up even more and she stops moving. Now May stays with her and helps the girl control her breathing, and we're shown that Kate was cheating on her girlfriend and that she refused to stay in school, rushing to the bus with the kids. She tells May she only lets people down and that she's no better than her father. Kentaro appears and says he's found a passage. Now in Hiroshi's office they find a weird map. They initially have trouble deciphering it, but Kentaro uses his knowledge about projected images and finds out where his father went after Alaska. Turns out he went to Africa. They all leave the area and go back to Caroline's house, and while Kate talks with her, revealing Hiroshi is alive, May calls Duval. Episode 6 of Monarch begins in 1955 with Shaw and Keiko about to attend a summer ball to show their faces to the military. As their project is fairly new, they must gain a few favours beforehand. The last thing Keiko wants is to be there, but Shaw reminds her of the importance of this night. A General Puckett presents them to other militaries interested in Project Monarch. Now after Puckett offends Keiko, she and Shaw go and sit at a table alone. She says the military will keep killing the Titans and stopping them from studying the creatures. Shaw says Keiko will get what she wants and compliments her. Then he invites her to dance. As they dance, both of them have fun and start flirting with each other. However, it doesn't really amount to anything because a message from Bill Randa arrives. In the present, some Monarch goons are transporting Shaw to another facility. Suddenly, Duval arrives and says there has been a change of plans. Before they realise it, she knocks them out. She interrogates Shaw and asks how he knows more than the organisation's physicists. Her sister, Sandra Brody, worked in Janjira and was a casualty of the nuclear accident that occurred there. So Duval came to Monarch wanting to avoid something like that ever happening again. She thinks Shaw is the answer to this. Now Kate, May and Kentaro go to Caroline's house and they find Shaw and Duval there. Shaw says Hiroshi is trying to stop what's coming, so they need to find him. Now at the same time, Vertigo and Tim try to discover where Hiroshi is. As the sun isn't entering the room, they can't find out the location like the kids did previously. However, Tim finds holes in the wall and realises they are the places Monarch has outposts around the world. He concludes Hiroshi might be in one of the following 3 places: Central Asia, near Cambodia, or somewhere in Africa. After the army ball in 1955, Bill told Keiko and Shaw he might have found a new Titan in Japan. However, they're presenting their budget proposal in the same week. Shaw is initially against it, but decides he'll stay there while the other 2 go and find the creature. On Hataruma Island, Bill and Keiko find Suzuki, a scientist who will help them find the new Titan. He built a gamma radiation simulator, which allows him to communicate with the creature. While he and Keiko see that as a phone, Bill says they have Titan bait. After Bill tells Shaw what they found, he decides to talk with Puckett. The general says he needs to start treating Monarch like a career, and that, if Shaw makes the wrong choice, he'll act accordingly. Shaw, Duval and the others arrive at the spot marked on the map. They find Hiroshi with a truck and a gamma radiation simulator. Kate and Kentaro are thrilled to see him and start shouting. Their father notices them and starts waving his arms. However, he isn't greeting them, but telling them to go away. Hiroshi gets his stuff and takes off with the truck, and a few moments later, Tim and a Monarch squad arrive in a helicopter. Back to Hataruma Island for now. Shaw arrives, which makes Keiko very angry, as he should be at the budget meeting. She says they can't be together, as their main concern needs to be Monarch, not their own happiness. Even so, they do end up kissing each other here. Suddenly though, the gamma radiation simulator comes flying towards them and almost kills them both. Godzilla rises from the water and screams, making them realise the bomb didn't kill him. The same thing then happens in the present, but the Titan comes out from underground. He devastates the area and almost kills Kate, May and Kentaro with their car. Godzilla looks straight into Kate's eyes and goes away. Kate says they need to run, but Shaw wants to follow Godzilla and says he is trying to help him. She thinks he's insane and says she's going away. May and Kentaro go with her, and the episode ends with May telling them she contacted Duval previously because she wanted to go home. Kate is furious and doesn't want to hear what else May has to say. Tim wakes up in the desert as the only survivor of the helicopter crash as episode 7 of Monarch begins. Meanwhile, at the nearest airport, Kate and Kentaro discuss what their father was doing with Godzilla. Now, Kate is the one who wants to know more, while her brother wants to escape from everything. Unbeknownst to them, someone is about to kidnap May in the bathroom, and Kate and Kentaro try to find her but are unsuccessful in doing so. Tim arrives at the airport and they jump on him, thinking Monarch abducted May. He starts talking about their grandparents, explaining they knew the world is much bigger than everyone thinks. Their father is the one who opened his eyes to that. It's here where they strike a deal. If Tim helps them find May, they'll help him find Shaw. Meanwhile, in Monarch Outpost 88, Duval and Shaw arrive with armed henchmen and take control of the place. Dr. Barnes, who was in the bathroom when they came, manages to escape and contact Vertigo. Kate says they need to contact May's sister, as it was her request when she was almost dying on the ice. Tim says that's not her real name, as she's actually using a fake passport, and her real name is Korra. 30 months earlier, she was hired by a tech company called AET. She asked her boss Brenda why she was hired and why a code she created disappeared without her agreement. However, Brenda says everything there is the company's property and that Korra needs to earn her place. Kate, Kentaro and Tim visits May's house to learn more about her. They create a story that all of them are in an online manga group and met in Japan. May's sister suspects them and leaves the house to see if they'll go after her. They convince her they're trustworthy and she tells them about AET. Korra made the company system crash and ran away to Japan. Korra is currently talking with Brenda, who says she could have been part of something great. However, Korra tells her she knows what they are secretly doing. She's found videos of them doing horrible and cruel experiments on monkeys. At the same time, Tim activates the Titan alarm, still in the city, so they can use the ruckus to enter the company. Korra is desperate to leave and go to safety, but Brenda knows it's a farce. She has her eyes on Godzilla and Monarch, so she offers Korra an alternative: infiltrate their ranks and act as a spy for AET. Tim, Kate and Kentaro find her in the building and try talking to her. However, she says she was just using them. She doesn't want to go with them, and when they leave AET, Vertigo is there to talk with them. She's angry, but Kate convinces her to help Korra with the same deal she has with Tim. Korra wants to be the only one who'll pay for her mistakes, so she doesn't accept the offer to act as a spy. Suddenly though, Brenda receives a phone call. It's Vertigo, and she's successful in changing Brenda's mind because Korra is free now. She goes home and meets Kate and Kentaro once again, and she also tells them to call her May. Vertigo listens to Tim and decides to bring Monarch out of the shadows. She announces on TV that they are responsible for the alarm and talks about the work they've been doing. And while watching the transmission, Brenda talks to someone and says her agreement with Vertigo can be very fruitful. She says something is a good statement for AET's new corporate mission, and a logo appears on her screen: Apex Cybernetics. While that happens, Shaw and his team go to Alaska once again. They attract the Ice Titan there and throw a type of bomb at him. When they explode, they kill it and create an enormous crater. Shaw rejoices upon seeing this, which is where the episode comes to an end. Episode 8 of Monarch begins with Shaw and Duval arriving in Kazakhstan, intending to kill another Titan. Duval says they could go after easier targets, but Shaw angrily states that's not true. Now in 1955, Keiko, Bill and Shaw report to Lieutenant Hatch, who took over Monarch. He diminishes their work and is racist towards Keiko, which compels Bill to try to strike him. They're all banished to the basement, and after looking through their stuff, Shaw concludes that they must make a map with everything they know. That will be their last effort to get the project back. Now Bill and Keiko start to work on their map, but they need to gather compelling evidence instead of using suspicious information. As they do that, they get closer, and Bill says he knows he can trust her no matter what. Tim brings Kate and the others to Monarch so they can track Lee Shaw and stop him. His attempts at killing the monsters might cause another G-Day. Kentaro doesn't believe they can be of any help, but Vertigo needs them to try. While reading Bill's files, Kate finds one about her grandmother's passing. They investigate it further and see that it happened in Kazakhstan, one of the places on Hiroshi's map. However, as they are not allowed to operate inside those borders, Vertigo says they need a small team. She doesn't want Kate and the others to go, but they say Shaw will treat them differently. When Tim offers to go too, she accepts. On their way to Kazakhstan, one of the agents gives Kate body armor. However, she refuses to wear it and says that, if they go there pointing guns at everyone, things won't go the way they want. As Shaw wants them there, he'll try to talk to them first. And when they arrive, Lee and his team are already inside the building. As Tim walks down a corridor, he finds hundreds of monster shells. That means those titans grew out of their skin and are even more dangerous now. They find an ominous hole surrounded by bombs at the centre of the area, which Tim identifies as a portal. He says it's an entry point to Tinfoil Hat Land. Kentaro asks him if Shaw's plan to close it is really that crazy, but no one answers. Shortly, Devour appears threatening them and says they need to go back. Shaw agrees to talk, but only if it's just with Kate. Shaw wants to talk with Kate because she has looked into Godzilla's eyes, and she's aware he knows what he's doing. Shaw says the Titans have a world of their own, and he has already been to it. He learned Godzilla doesn't want to hurt them, he just wants to keep his kind in his world and the humans in theirs. Sealing off the portals is his form of atonement. As Bill looks at the map, lost, he sees an ant using a hole to go to the back of it. That gives him an idea, and he runs off to talk with Keiko. He knocks at her door and she seems pretty disturbed. Now Bill says the Titans have a realm inside and alongside Earth existing together. Although it's crazy, she recognises its brilliance. Suddenly, a 3-year-old Hiroshi interrupts their conversation and she presents him to Bill. She explains people already disregard her as a scientist for being a Japanese woman, and having a son could have made things worse, so she kept it a secret the whole time. They have a wholesome conversation about this, and Bill says he'll help her. Now when the young Shaw receives the map from Keiko and Bill, he goes to General Puckett, who's about to have a meeting with the president. Initially, he doesn't want to talk with Shaw. However, when Lee says Godzilla is alive, the general's opinion shifts completely and he grabs the map. Kate tries to convince Shaw to stop, but he quickly activates the bombs. The whole place starts to crumble and everyone runs away, and May ends up falling into the portal. Kate is dragged by one of the creatures and falls with Shaw, who tries to save her, as the episode comes to a crazy conclusion. Bill and Lee talk to Hiroshi, who is now a bit older as episode 9 of Monarch begins. Shaw mentions he has to go on a trip for a while, but that it'll be safe. Then he hands the kid his pocket knife as a gift. They're in a Monarch test site, and Shaw is about to go to the Titans world. He and his team enter a capsule right above a portal, but as only the monsters can enter their world, they must use a radiation simulator. This will attract a monster, which will allow them to go down and explore the place. Now when the trip starts, the antennas nearby start to break, and a little hurricane forms above the portal. The capsule also starts breaking, and Shaw can't contact Lee. No one can really explain what happened, and Bill comes back home alone, and Hiroshi understands what that means, making a sad face as the scene fades. Kentaro wakes up in a hospital bed completely confused. Tim and Vertigo explain that after Shaw activated the bombs, the building collapsed and many people died, including Kate and May. He doesn't believe it and says there has to be something they can do. Vertigo says the only thing he can do for his family is keep living. Shaw finds himself in a barren forest inside the Titans world. May also wakes up disorientated and stares at the unknown land and the ground. As it starts to gather electricity, Shaw rushes and jumps at her, avoiding a lightning bolt. They run and Shaw explains he's familiar with the place because of a recon mission. Now, finding Kate is the most important thing for them. When Shaw first comes back from his mission in a Titan's world, he finds himself in a strange Monarch facility. He isn't allowed to get out and doctors check him every day. He captures one of the nurses and threatens her so he can escape. Suddenly, someone he doesn't know calls out to him. This happens to be Hiroshi, but they're 20 years older. Hiroshi says they can't let him out because no one knows if he is safe. Shaw explains the thing he saw during his mission and says that Bill was right about everything. However, Hiroshi doesn't believe that. We find out he was the one who sent Shaw to the retirement home, and there he takes his medicine and just stares at TV the whole day. But something changes inside him when he sees Godzilla on the news. In Monarch, Barnes finds a signal and calls Tim and Vertigo. She tells him a first gamma burst isn't about to erupt and follows a pattern. Someone is trying to send them a message. As Kentaro tries to find something that can help him in his father's office, Hiroshi arrives. He's surprised to see his son there and tries to convince him to talk things out. Crying, Kentaro says it's too late for that because Kate is dead. At first, Hiroshi goes into denial and then starts to cry as well. Kate wakes up in a different part of the forest and it looks and feels a lot more apocalyptic and dangerous. Suddenly, a new monster, which resembles a boar, appears. When it rushes to attack her, an arrow hits its eye. Kate looks around to find her saviour and sees her grandmother, Keiko, who is still as young as ever. Episode 10 of Monarch Legacy of Monsters begins with Keiko and Kate out in the woods. Now, Keiko doesn't seem very surprised with the situation, and she asks if Bill Randa or Shaw are with her, but Kate is too desperate to answer. Keiko created a signal so she could be found, and she's calm because she's sure Kate and a rescue team are there to save her. But that's not what's happening. When she becomes suspicious of Kate, May and Shaw appear there. At first, Shaw doesn't want to show his face, explaining the situation behind a tree. Keiko starts crying after learning she has been stuck there for many decades. The good news is that she finds out Kate is her granddaughter and that Hiroshi is okay. Now, Hiroshi tells Kentaro that he disappeared to prove his parents right. He needed to show Monarch that rifts exist and are connected. That's the only way to keep the human species alive. So he asks Kentaro to work with him, a proposition the boy doesn't really like. Tim, now back at work, wants to know more about the signal. Even though it can mean that someone is alive, Vertigo states Monarch has other priorities at the moment. That infuriates Tim, who says the three could save billions of lives. If they don't do anything, then Shaw was right about the organisation all along. Keiko configured the radiation emitter so it would send out a pulse to let Monarch know where she was. While Shaw investigates the machine, she asks Kate about Hiroshi. Even after everything, she tells a happy and optimistic version of who her father is. Now, Shaw has a plan to get them out of there, but he needs Keiko to rewire the machine back to its original configuration. They attach branches to it and start carrying it somewhere else. Shaw takes him to the ship he used to get to Axis Mundi in his mission, and they connect the emitter to it, planning to attract a Titan who will make them travel back to their side of Earth. However, the one who comes is a hostile pterodactyl, which is already there. Naturally, it ends up damaging the ship. Shaw gets out to fix it so they can leave safely, but soon after, Godzilla comes out of the rift and battles the pterodactyl. The green lizard easily overpowers his opponent, allowing the protagonist to start the ship. Shaw does his best to enter, but he can't. Keiko holds his hand, but like she did once, he sacrifices himself so everyone can escape. After he falls, they close the ship and go through the portal. They arrive at a facility with Kentaro and Hiroshi waiting for them, and Kentaro says a lot has changed in the past 2 years. As the facility's gate closes, King Kong roars outside, which brings season 1 of Monarch to an agonising end. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.